Okay, so I'm missing a big portion of this storm flap, and so what I'm doing is I took big sheets of paper, put them together, and stuck them or taped them from the inside with really good tape because we're always windy here where I am. And then I came back on the outside. First I kept what was left of it up, but some of it's warped and it was pushing in on the paper, so I got whatever I could get drawn in before it blows off, because that's inevitable here. And I'm using that to draw a pattern of the opening up there, and then I will also use this. It looks like there's about a ½ inch space around the storm flap, and so I'm going to use my pattern and cut out some cardboard and try to arrive at a really good shape for the replacement wood. And this will show you how I did it from the inside. And you have to rub the dust and dirt off things so the tape will stick. I used some pretty good tape I had, and I taped it up in here first and then went outside and drew the line. I figured that would be the easier way to do that. Okay, so the work on the storm flap continues, and once again, this is a one-horse Baron 1, so at least the panel will be narrower than if it was the 2-horse version. Some key measurements as I get started. This, I'll call it a channel, is 49.75 inches on this trailer. It is a little bit less than 3/8 on that opening, and unfortunately I wasn't really able to find a product that is 3/8 here in our area, and so I ended up purchasing a product that is 1/2 inch, and then what I'm going to have to do, or try to do anyway, is router that end so it's narrower so that it will fit in that channel. And also, as I showed previously, I started by doing a paper pattern of that opening. From what I can kind of tell, the difference between the width of the storm curtain and the opening, it looks like they left, at least on the bottom anyway, about a ½ inch on each side. So as I refine my pattern, I'm going to probably leave that much gap all around it, and I'll show you the product I'm using to make the panel out of next. So here's the product I ended up deciding on. It's a ½ inch MDO, and don't confuse MDO with MDF, it's not the same thing. This is a product that's used to make outdoor signs, and it is a marine ply, and you can buy it in different versions. I actually really wanted the primered version, but they did not have that in stock at the sign supply place I went to, so I ended up getting the double-sided painted version, which will be okay. I'll still have to paint it because when I cut it, I'm going to have raw edges, so they'll need to be painted to seal the ends. And what I'm going to start doing here next is, unfortunately it was more than 48 inches wide, which is the width of the panel, so I have to go the length. I'm going to cut the 49 3/4 inch width piece so that I can get it down to a more manageable size, and I'm hoping with the extra wood that I might make a shelf for my other Brender-up, for that shelf that goes under the window. But this was the best alternative that I could find in our area We don't have a lot of boat builders or anything here. And I did like that it has a smooth surface. So I'm not going to have wood grain. It's going to be nice and shiny like the original one that was on there. Okay, so I have my cut the full sheet down, and the way you're looking, that'll be the bottom of the flap. And then I'll still have to take my pattern and cut off the top, but I figured I'd at least get that done this evening. And then this is the bar that was at the bottom of the storm flap, and I routed that edge. That bar has kind of lived a rough life, so I'll need to do some straightening on it, but it does at this point appear that I routed off enough to get that to fit. And it's going to need, I guess it was left laying on the ground, because the rest of that trailer is not very rusty, but this has some rust inside. It's not bad, but it needs to be cleaned up and galvanized. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, so I had a change in plan. We'll see how it goes. The original trim on the bottom of the storm flap was kind of bent and out of shape, and in my attempt to make it straighter, I put a big kink in it last night, which I don't know if I could get it back from that or not. I probably could, but it's pretty rusty on the inside too. It would need a lot of cleaning up, so I did some research online, and Lowe's has trim. It's aluminum, and for a 1/2 inch plywood edge. It's a little tight on this one, but I think it will work. And I'll show you the number in case somebody else needs to do it. This would have been much easier than having to router stuff. And of course I'm assuming it will all fit together correctly, being bigger than the original. But that's the product information right there. You know, if you have to ship something that's really long, it's pretty expensive, but this was about, I'm going to say $12 at Lowe's. So we're going to cut off that routed edge and then fit that. And it's pretty windy here today, so I don't know if I'll do it, but I had made a cardboard template out of the paper pattern that I made. And I'm going to try attaching that to the trailer so I can refine down it'll be a little stiffer. So, hopefully I'll get a more accurate measurement. And I'm going to try to do that today, though it might be too windy to do that. Okay, so I took what remains of the old one and I put it on my cardboard, we'll call it template. And obviously, the cardboard was made from the paper I stretched across the opening, which is not going to be perfect because paper wouldn't be taut enough to give me these very correct measurements. So I hope the cardboard's going to be close, but obviously I'm expecting that I'll trim it down from what it is to make my ultimate pattern. What I'm going to try doing is I took the original piece I still had, I centered it on the cardboard, tried marking it with a pen, but the hole's too deep. But really, since it's cardboard, I just poked holes in through the holes that are there, so that will give me my pattern. I'm going to put holes through it and then try to take the original hardware and attach it to the arms so I can hang it back up to do my final measurements. Okay, so what I did was I poked holes through the cardboard, and I've pushed the original hardware through. I'll have to take it off because I believe that, if I'm thinking right, the arms will go between the cardboard and the bolts. And then I'm going to try to attach it back on the trailer so I can do my pattern and yeah, I do have one piece of hardware that looks different because there was one missing when I got the trailer. And I do intend to order stainless hardware, and I will have to take into account that the piece of wood I use is thicker than the original, so I'll have to figure all that out when I order hardware. Okay, so now you can see I took the cardboard and I put the old hardware in it, and I attached it through the arms. It is pretty windy here today, so I'm hoping that it doesn't fall apart on me, so I can flip it up, and then I'm going to trace from the inside in my shape. And now I'm on the inside, and I actually think that for the most part it was really close. That edge right there, it probably is right at where it should be. And then over here I was over a little bit. So it will give me a better idea of how big that and the shape of that opening. And by the way, if you're dealing with the wind like I am and you don't have a helper right now, you want to shut the doors in the trailer, because when I left them open I noticed the wind goes through. So you'll have less wind blowing stuff around if you shut the front doors. Just so you can see too, to get the cardboard right up against the edges, I did duct tape around it. May not need to do that depending on what kind of weather conditions you have. It's pretty windy here today, so I took the 3 sides, not the bottom. I had that measurement from the old board, but on the 3 sides I basically made a pattern of the opening, and then I took a 1/2 inch off that for my opening. When you look at these, they don't fit flush. There's a gap around them, and I assume that's for so you don't have like a vacuum buildup in there. I do use mine up when it's cold weather. So I'm gonna make it the way I think they made it, and I'm in the process of taping it down to the finished, or the piece of MDO, and I'm gonna draw my line around it, and I think I'm gonna use a jigsaw to cut that out. Another thing when you're tracing out your pattern is, if you have them on the pattern, which I did because I attached it to the trailer, don't forget to mark the hardware holes, because that might save you some work figuring that out after the fact. So just a tip. Okay, we're getting towards the moment of truth here, and I cut it out with the jigsaw. I went ahead and I put the hardware in, except the original bolts are the kind that have that little square thing on it, and I need to punch that through. I'm not sure if I will have enough screw length when I go to do this, because the wood is thicker, but we'll find out when I get out there. But I really wanted to test fit it first. So alas, the moment of truth. The hardware just barely made it, so I'll need longer hardware. But I got it installed, and I got it flipped up, and it doesn't appear to be hitting or anything. So I'm pretty happy with the results of that. I'm going to take it back off. I'm going to seal the edges of that wood with some primer and paint combo that I have for now. I will come back and paint the whole back with paint at some point, but this will at least keep animals out of there and keep that deluge of water that probably did ride out the floor in this one. So, and while I was at it, I went ahead and took the 2 arms off. The spots where they were attached to the board, they had some surface rust on them, so I cleaned that off, hit it with some rusty metal primer, and then I went back over it with a gray primer paint. I didn't have any chrome color, but it's on the side where it won't show, but that should help them from not rusting anymore. And then I just painted the edges of the backboard. I do intend to go back and hit it with, or paint the whole back of the trailer with marine paint, but until then, this should be very, it seals the ends, and should keep it in good shape. Okay, so here's another thing I ran into with rebuilding the storm flap. This piece was actually thrown in the tack room, and at first I wasn't really sure what it was, but now I know it's like a stabilization bar, or a bar that was put on those storm flaps to keep them from warping. My 99 does not have this piece, I don't think. I'll have to double check, but I actually think my 99 model does not have that, and it's still pretty straight. But anyway, I'm going to put it back on. This piece, because it has no holes on one side, and it is aluminum, was riveted on. So the rivets were still in it, and I'll tell you how I got them off. First, I took a pliers and I kind of grabbed the rivets and twisted them so that they'll be loose in the housing or in the backing there. And then I took a Dremel tool and I cut them off. And then I used, you can use any piece of hardware or something that you can sit on that cut off end, and then I tapped it with a hammer back into the tube so that my hole was free. And you'll go, well, gee, now you have this loose piece laying around, but all you'll have to do to get rid of those loose pieces will be to get a screwdriver on this plug, remove the plug, remove all the loose pieces, and then I'll also have to figure out what type of hardware I'm going to use to reattach that. I don't really want to drill all the way through it, so I'm either going to look at a well nut or a rib nut, and we'll make that decision when I can find some hardware. Taking some time away from this project because I was waiting for parts to come in from Amazon, getting some of the stainless hardware and things locally. I didn't really find them. So now I'm back to work, and my current project is reattaching this, I'll call it metal stabilizer bar, to the storm flap. The original one had rivets that were still sticking out of it, and at first, honestly, when I found this thing in the tack room, I didn't really know what it was, but I determined that that's what this was for. What I've done is I drilled out those old partial rivets, and I put in nut certs so that I'll be able to just screw screws through it. Then I've made a pattern out of cardboard to drill my holes through the back, and I hope they do line up fairly well, so that then I'll be able to attach the stabilizer. Now I'm getting the, this is the aluminum edge piece that I had gotten for the bottom of the panel, and that's because, if you remember, I destroyed the one that was there already, and now I'm getting it ready by drilling holes just like the other one had, for the hardware that will hold this to the piece of wood. And by the way, when I test fitted it, it fits very tight. However, you do need to keep in mind that probably over the years, as the wood shrinks and things, that it may not. So I assume that's why they put screws in it. Essentially, I use the same screw hole pattern for the most part that the original piece had, which puts those end screw, there's one in the center, so you're going to drill a hole in the center, and then at each end, those holes were 1 1/4 inches, and then the other 2 holes are essentially right between the center hole and the end hole, and I'm getting ready to do those. When I do it, keep in mind that the hole does not go all the way through. You don't really, it'll be one less intrusion point for water. So you don't need it to go all the way through the panel. So what I'm doing is I took a piece of wood so that when I break through, I don't damage the other side of the aluminum. Now to attach the what is now an aluminum edging to the board, first I used a rubber mallet. You can buy those pretty reasonably, by the way, at Walmart or any place. I gently tapped it on. It is, in this case, kind of a tight fit. I've already done the two ends, and then what I did was I took a slightly smaller drill bit and just barely started a hole. Keep in mind, you don't need that to go all the way through. It didn't on the original. And then I have my stainless steel screws that were short enough. I had a problem finding these locally, and I can't remember exactly how long they are. I'm going to say they might be 3/8 inch long, but I didn't want screws that went all the way through because they don't need to. I bought stainless. This is aluminum. So I also bought a box of, I think they're just plastic washers, maybe they're rubber, so that I can put a buffer between the stainless and the aluminum to prevent corrosion. I don't think I will have that problem. I'm not in a salt air area or anything like that, but it doesn't hurt to spend a penny or more to get it done right. So hopefully we'll have the bottom rail reattached soon. And this is the back side. I'm attaching the stabilization bar from the other side. Once again, I use stainless hardware for this, hopefully to keep it from rusting. And at Lowe's they had these little screw cap things, so I decided to try those, and I think they look kind of neat. And if you're wondering what size screws I use 1/4 inch on that, and about a 1 inch screw, because remember I had to use a 3/2 inch board. So we're almost there. Okay, so we're getting closer. So now I'm getting ready to put in the bolts that will hold it to the arms on the trailer. And once again, you can see the ones I purchased are just these. This is the new one. They're just a little bit longer than the old one because, like I said, the piece of wood I ended up buying was a little bit thicker. So I had to order those. Once again, I ordered stainless. If you notice, the originals had a washer between, I'm going to call this a carriage bolt, and the bolt head. So I used my little thing of washers to do the same on this one. Because it's a square head, let's see if we can show that, I'm going to take a hammer and tap them in here. And another tip I'll give everybody if you're doing this is to kind of keep yourself straight. It's not on this side, but I put a piece of tape on the other side and label like which side of the flap is when it's down and when it's folded up. This would be the side showing when the flap is folded down with the back open, because you kind of have to keep all of that straight as you're doing this project. And just so you can see how I install this, we'll call it the flat side of the carriage bolt goes to the outside when the flap is down. That's how the original was. This is the back side of that support piece that keeps the board from warping. On the inside, I did it pretty much the way the original was, except, like I said, I did go with slightly longer hardware. I may have gotten away with the old hardware, but it was kind of rusty. And what I did was I used, I'm going to call it a lock washer, because that's what was on there originally. It's something similar to the ones I bought. The nut, and then I tightened them down good. Don't overdo it because it is wood. And then in Brender-up style, I will be putting the black screw covers or nut covers on top of that. So there's my new storm curtain. I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. It did all come together pretty well. It fits a little better on this side than on this side. I think this bracket got bent, and so I'll probably need to bend it back out a little bit, but it actually makes it fit nice and tight up there, so that may not actually be a bad thing. And it'll be a definite step to keep the water out of this trailer. It must have been taking on a lot of water with that flap like it was. If you're ever looking at one, a lot of people say, you know, if there's a door or a window or any of these things off and it constantly has water spilling into it in high volume like that, you're probably going to have a rotten floor, and this one does. So the first steps are to get it where it's fairly, you know, waterproof, and before we put a new floor in it.